we are very much set up for everything. So last week we talked about actually we had to talk about the object data type. So we started talking about arrays in JavaScript. I told you that there are certain elements of arrays and things like that. There's map function that we talked about. Then there are some other functions that can modify our array. So like one way or other. So we talked about post, pop, and all those functions. Then we talked about um, regular expressions, and most of you said that. Okay, it's going blur for you. And Brian, how is it now? Is it any better now? Okay. So we talked about regular expressions, and some people said that, of course, most of you said that you are familiar with regular expressions, or you had a nice experience with that, like in Linux or a course somewhere. So we have not discussed that much in detail. But anyhow, then we started talking about the objects, which was the most important part. And today I will continue from that part. And today we will be just working on these things. We saw that an empty literal object is something like this, where we have defined an object. An object always is surrounded by the curly braces. So I am just reviewing. This one is also a review, but of course, just keep in mind that this would be a very nice, it's basically something that would give us the sense for today's lecture as well. We saw that this is an empty object literal, where we have defined an object with var obj1, and it has nothing inside that with curly braces. So you'll say this is an empty object literal. But if you define a value, you say var object2 is equal to course colon WEB222. And I told everyone that whenever there is this key mapping in an object, where there is a key or there is a sort of a variable, and then its value or something like that. So this is called key and mapping. So we have got this key mapping in the object, and then we said that object literals with a key value pair in it. So there are key value pairs. And then I gave you an example that arrays also work in the same way, but arrays do not have the key like with something else. Rather, the key in array is always the numbers, the index number, the indices that we talk about. That those index numbers are basically the key over there, and the mapping is the value that you just usually find over there. Anyhow, then we talked about. So then we talked about that an object can have multiple values, of course. That this one is the course WEB222, then comma, then section NBB, and school Seneca, whatever. So we have got these different fields. So we can have multiple fields in one object. So this is 1, this is 2, this is 3. You can have multiple. And if you want to check them, if you want to see them, you remember we have talked about there are two conventions to access values inside that. One is the array-like convention, array-like notation. And array notation, just take the name of the object and curly braces like square brackets, and then the key, whatever key you want to print on. It just takes that one out and prints that for you. Same ways with this. Again, this is an array-like, and then we have a dot notation. So dot notation is another interesting one. Dot notation does what? You take the name of the object and do dot. So it will just give you access like that. So we have given 2 examples that it can be obj2 course or something like that. You can just access something like that. So these are both of the ways of access. Then we talked about position of Seneca College and map. That if you want to just map those one, we have to multiple values that we can just give 45 or something like that. Then we can define into separate variables. Then we can define in an array. This is an array of the values, 2 values. But to remember, we will discuss that to print out anything, we need to remember that index number. If it is 0, like we are talking about the latitude or the longitude, whatever. So we said that okay, this is another way of accessing or defining these values, but why not just define them by using an object so that we have these reference names attached to them rather than they're like rather than anything. So now I know that I can access Seneca.let and Seneca.longitude LNG. I'll get that value. Then we talked about that if we have multiple points, if we want to collect multiple points of different campuses or something like that. So there are 2 ways of doing that. We can have an array of arrays, but again, it becomes a 2D array, 2-dimensional array that has like multiple values, so rows and columns that they have. And we can do, so if we want to print something out of it, of course we need to have both numbers. We need to have the number of row and number of column. Both should be known if we want to access a particular value over here. So now let's see. Then we talked about that why not just store these points in a square brackets, like again, an array of objects. And that's something that I would like you to emphasize on, just concentrate on, because that is something that we'll be using every now and then to show some of the important aspects of that one. Right. So what will happen is that again, now if I want to access something, I'll have to just know the row, for example, and I can just access that. For example, 0.0 of longitude, I'm talking about -29, 0.1 of longitude, -39, and up to so on. So all these values can be accessed by using the name of the array alongside this 0 plus dot longitude or latitude. Then we just reached to a point where we started defining a user. That's more practical, that we'll be using for our purposes. So my user is the first name. I've defined some first name, some last name, some email, some logged in. So we can define object this way as well, in a vertical form fashion, where you are just giving all the fields with new line for the second field. Then we define a function. We said function login user, where user.first name is equal to Bob. So we have just set up the first name. We have changed the first name. And if we call this, if we have this, for example, login user. So I changed it later on. But originally what it was doing, it was just changing the logged in status to true, false to true, something like that. So if you call that function, of course, you will be just doing that. Then we talked about that objects are very important, and we can get multiple values returned from a function by using this object terminology. And that was an interesting thing. Why? Because we never were able to, in C language, we were never able to get a multiple values out of it. So we can just get a multiple value, something like this, total column, average column in the curly braces. Now it will be returned as a complete object. So that's an interesting thing. And that's the last thing that we did on that day. So today I'll just I'll start talking about some of the very interesting facts, and I'll just continue from this one, and I'll again take this example of user. So what I'll do is right now, maybe I'll just copy this user from here. Rather, first of all, uncomment it, copy it, comment it. And now I'll create a new folder for this week, because I want to just keep my folders very separate and very organized. So I'll just open up a new folder, and I'll call it week 4. Right, and then in this week 4, what I'll do is that I will select this folder, and as I've copied that, okay, save that one. So we are in week 4. So we have a new file here. I'll call it a script again. We are still working on JavaScript, and we know that we are still into this one. Okay. So I talked about this, that this is a user object that you can just usually define. Right. So now I want you to just understand something. I want you to just recognize something, because we'll be just talking about that. This is only one user. What if I want to have multiple users connected together? So now again we'll go with the same thing. I can just say y or let, whatever I am using, let users is equal to square brackets. What does that mean? I want to create an array of users where there are multiple users of that sort. You know what I mean? So I want to create multiple users. Now I'll come inside this one and I'll say, okay, I will have multiple users. And my multiple users will be separated by this comma. So this is second user. This should be third user. This should be fourth user, and like that. So let's take 4 users right now. I'm just creating an array of 4 users. So you see that it will come in this way. Now I would just take this first name, last name, and login, and let's uncomment them first of all. Copy them and comment them again. And let me paste it over here. So I have this first user, right? First name, last name, and I'll just copy and paste. So for example, now you can just give any names, and I'll just change that names as well. You see, this is the second one, this is the third one, this is the fourth one. So very easy. I have just done what? I have just copied and pasted that one. Now I'll just change this first name from something to something. So if I say Alan, and I can say, so you can, just to make this more interesting, logged in false. Second one is Bob, for example. My old slot names Bob at Gmail and logged in is true. Maybe just set up some different values for some. This is the second one. Third one, again, my fictitious name of Christina. Christina, and I want to have Christina's email. Christina at Gmail, and let's keep it false, and then we can have Doug that has an email, and it is true, for example. I just want to make some different records. Now, what is this? I have collected some users over there. And why I have done that, I just want to show you a few very, very interesting things, because then we'll just talk about some of the getters and setters that we can set up and how we can just, enhance on these users. Now, if I ask you that I want to have, if I ask you a typical user, I want to print an email of a typical user. So, this is an array. So it means this is my first value, which is at 0th index. This is my second value at 1 index, and up to so on, right? So if I want to print, for example, email of this Bob, right? I want to print this Bob email. How I would do that? You see here, console.log. So what is the name of my array? It's users. So first of all, it will come at users, square brackets. Now, which user I'm talking about right now? The first user, Alan, is at 0th location. We know that array starts with 0. Bob is at 1 location. So it means that I will need, so it's in 1 location. So Bob, I need the email of Bob. So I'll say users of 1 dot email. Now, you would understand where I want to take all of it. So node, script.js, let's run. You see that Bob at gmail.com is printing over there. Now this will change, of course. If I just come over here, if I say user 3 of Gmail, user 3 of email, so it says that because that is the 4th record, which is basically number 3 index. It's printing that number. You know what I mean? So it's basically doing what? It is an array of objects. You have to keep that in mind. This is the arrays of objects, and what I have done is that I have created an arrays of objects, and we can work on. Now, if I ask you that I want to have all those users printed together, I want to print all those users. So you remember that we have a collect to print a collection. We have multiple options. One of them is for each. Do you guys remember that? And now another question: did I discuss this? This format with all of you, the arrow function. I have discussed that one with everyone. I just want to console here one statement. Console.log. Yes, everyone. Did I discuss this arrow notation with you? The arrow function. Okay, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. If you have any question, you can just let me know. So now what I'll do, I want to print all emails, email of every user. What should I do? I'll say user.email. Now, what is this user? Remember, user is this parameter that I have passed, and it has all those 4 values. Anyhow, let's run that one and see what happens. So you see that record: Alan at Gmail, Bob at Gmail, Christina at Gmail, Doug at Gmail. Everyone's email has been printed over. So it means I can run through this collection very easily. And I can not only print that, I can even do a lots of interesting things. So if I say to uppercase, which is a function by the way, I'll have to call it as a function. So if I do that, and if I run that one, you see that all emails are appearing in the uppercase. So it means that I can do processing of anything. So if I just take out all these emails cases, okay, Vinny, I can explain that. Just hold on a second. So if I just say user, it means that I want to print all the objects. I'll discuss that no worries. So if you see here that now all the users are printed, user objects. You see that first object is Bob, second is Doug. Oh, where is the Alan's one? This is the Alan. The first one is Alan. First one is Alan, then Bob, and then Christina, and then we have this done. Right? So all objects. So I can print all the records like this, or I can print a typical thing out of every record. So for example, I say only first name. And again, just convert that to the uppercase letter because I want to have, and this is the function by the way. Remember that. So now if I run that, so you see that Alan, Bob, Christina, and Bud, all their first name are appearing over here. Everyone is getting that because this is very important because we'll be playing with data, we'll be bringing up data on our web, and then we'll be playing with that data by using this for each and things like that. So you should be very much, fluent in this one, that how to access any particular record, how to access any particular function data out of that one. So I'm expecting that everyone is basically having is understanding and is basically is with me. So can I get some yeses and nos in chat window maybe? If okay, Kunal, thank you very much, Kunal. You are always actively replying back. Thank you. Very Tariq, thank you very much. Okay, so now Vinny, you asked about this arrow symbol over here. I will show you, or I will just let you know that this is an arrow function. And I think it was in our week 1 class or week 2 class when we discussed these arrow functions. These are very interesting arrow functions, which are replacement of a traditional function. Okay, you are talking about this access. Yes, you are right, structure. It's more like structure. But I'm talking right now about this arrow function that you're asking. So arrow function is just like, it's basically, I'll just, I'll show you because I think you don't remember that, but I'll show you if I had written that without using this arrow function. So I say that we pass a function to this, and there will be a user over here, and there will be curly braces, and then console.log, and then user.first name, or maybe dot to uppercase as well. To local uppercase. Now see here, this function will also do the same thing. It's also doing the same thing, but now I'm using a more traditional function, which is called, one way or other, this is called function declaration, function expression, it is called right. It is called function expression. So now if you want to convert that into an arrow type function, Vinny, I think you missed out that lecture, but I'm just telling you, not for you only, but all others who have missed that. So if you want to convert it to an arrow function, just remove this function from here and come over here and give an equal to an arrow sign, and this will become an arrow function. And again, if you miss that class, we discussed that what is the importance of these arrow functions. They will be very important, and I'm using mostly these arrow functions because this gives us a very nice, short version of the function. You're right, right? So this function, of course, now it has become an arrow function, and of course, it will act like as it was supposed to be acting like. So this will be a function that will do that. Okay, now with respect to object, there is some important concept. I hope everyone is understanding this, and I'll just, I might come back to this later on, but right now I'm just making it comment. And I'll be making my notes over here as well. So when we talk about object data types, we have some interesting things related to that one. There are one functions which are called getter functions. If you have studied them in your OOP till now, I don't know. And one of them is called setter functions. Getters and setters. Have you studied that in object-oriented programming yet? Getters and setters with this name? Getter functions and setter functions? No. Kunal says no. Parth says yes. So is it a mismatch? Not yet. Andy says okay. So I think Parth, you know it by your own experience. But I think you might have studied it somewhere else because most of the people are saying, okay, that's wonderful. So but when I ask the question that have you studied, I'm asking that right now they are studying object-oriented programming. Did you study this over there or not? But you got my point. So anyhow, if you know it already, you can just tell me I already know this. But since most of the people are saying that they have not discussed, they do not know, it means that it was not discussed as a topic till now. Anyhow, I'll talk about that. So, for example, if you have an object, let obj 4 maybe obj 4 equal to, I define an object. So name, and let's see WEB222 whatever. I'm just defining that course object. So name is WEB22. Now, there are some functions which are used to read the state of the variables, read the state of object. They are called getter functions. So see here, they are called getter functions. Now, what does that mean? I can bring out this name from this obj4 by using this statement. For example, if I have to print that, I'll say console.log obj4 dot name. So here it will be called as a getter. Why? Because it is getting value. It is taking value out of my object. Is that right? Now, what is setter then? So, for example, after that, I say obj4 dot name equal to. You know what I mean? So, rather than WEB222, I say WEB322. For example, just changing that. Now, if I print console.log obj4 dot name, of course, you know what name should come out. Is it WEB22 or WEB322? Of course, now obj4 status has changed. So a function or something that changes the value of an object is called setter. Setter function or setters, you can just call them. You understand everything? Setter and getter. These are the two names that we can set. Now, JavaScript is so friendly. JavaScript is so user friendly. Let me tell you a very interesting fact. So you know about this getter and setter. I'll just comment that out just for you, just for nothing. Now JavaScript is so very friendly that if I say obj4 dot name, this makes sense because name is there. But when you see how JavaScript is, how much kind this is. If I say obj4 dot school equal to Seneca. Now, do you understand that school is not a field in my object? And in C language, if something was not part of your field of the structure, you could never define that. You could never give that value. Now, let me show you something very interesting. If I just print this obj4 now, and I print this obj4 over here as well, just to show you the difference. So now let's run that one. See that JavaScript is so user friendly that if you just by yourself you store something in a new field, that field becomes part of that object. Exactly. Right now, you just consider they are all public right now. Yes. So you see here that what is happening is that Vinny, I want you to understand something. School was never part of obj4 when it was declared, but I have forcefully stored another value in school, and school has become part of that object. You see at the bottom of my screen that object first of all shows name WEB222, now it is showing school Seneca as well. Yeah. So JS friendly nature that is giving me. Now another interesting aspect. For example, I want to now remove this school Seneca from this one. So for example, I say that I have just I want to just delete this one. So I can do one thing. Now see here, and this is important, you will be using this one. So I say obj4 dot school equal to null. I can set up this null. And now let's print this and see if it is really become null or not. Or I need to do something else. You'll see. So you see that WEB222 second time, of course, when this school Seneca is added, it shows school Seneca. And the third time, you see here, if you see my output, third time it says name web school is null. It means that this school is not deleted by any means. You know what I mean? So it means that if you need to really remove that, you will have to do that. Obj not. You have to use that delete obj4 dot school. Now, very interestingly, now see it. You see that it has been deleted. So delete the object name plus the property or whatever you want to delete. So maybe property. It would be rather more appropriate to say property. So basically, So basically what it has done is it has just defined another property technically, and it has deleted one other property. Why? Because I have just used that delete keyword. So delete will typically delete the value and set up this one, something like this. Right. So till now we are just talking about this one, and we will just see that now we want to just improve that one or add few things to our. So this is we are just still now talking about object oriented programming in JavaScript. And now I'll talk about something else. So for example, if I have a user equal to, and again the curly braces, because I want to create an object. There is a user that I want to create. For example, I will again take that previous one, just make it a comment because I don't want to run anything other than what I'm running. So I'll just copy and paste this one. And let me show you here that this is the first name, last name. Let's add more things to this one, right? So for example, it can have a numeric value as well. For example, you want to give a numeric value, age 20. You can give, for example, you say hobbies, and you can give an array over here. So for example, you say reading and horse riding, whatever. Just just to add few values, or maybe you can just add, right? This is, you can define an array as a property as well. Not only that, we can even define an object inside object. So if I say preferences, for example, if you want to define some preferences, and this will be basically as an act. So if I say, for example, preferences means it's like color black, someone. So this guy likes black color, right? And this guy likes, for example, whatever you say, for example, anything. Boom, boom, boom. So it can be, so let's say, for example, preferences, color black, and anything, model, any, right? Just to make it. So I can even define, I can just even give an object inside object as well. And I'll show you some different shapes over here. And let's say that there is something called a score of this user or something like that. And that score is null right now. I'm just not giving any score to that one. Now this is my object now, and I'll share this with you because I would be playing with this one. So I'll share this as a code for you with all of you, and you can just copy that one if you. So this is one object now that has multiple values inside that, and it has simple values as well, simple properties, and then it has some properties which are array in nature, and then there is some property which are object by themselves, right? So if I come over here and I console this user, let's console that and see what comes up. You see here, it's showing me that this is a user first and last name, first at Gmail, and then logged in is equal to false, and then age is 20, and hobbies are reading, horse riding, and sports, and then preference is color black, model any, and score is null. And now that we can play with all these values, we can change all these values. So for example, if I come over here and I say user dot score equal to 20, something like that, 200, whatever. If I do that, and if I run this file again, of course, we have seen that. So if I run it again, you see that score is coming up as a 20 number because now I have just, I have just defined that one. Now I want to do one more thing. So this is just, checking that one. I can take out anything out of it. For example, I can say user dot preferences. I just want preferences from user. So I'll come here and I say ref user dot pref. So just give me the prefs of user. So you say color black and model any, and I can say that what was the array? Hobbies. You give me the user hobbies just hobbies I need. Hobbies. Save that one, and now if I run that, you'll say that they are coming as an array. So this is important, and please remember that this is I've been continuously saying that this one is important. Now I want to do something. You remember we had a function as well lastly, which I am not here. So I would like to define a function over here as well. So I'm defining a login function over here. So remember, here I'm defining the function in a very traditional way, not traditional, the original function expression way or something like that. So I'm just defining a function. So I say this dot logged in. So you remember, this means that I'm talking about the current object where it has been called, equal to true. So when we say this, remember that one. This means the owner of this function, owner of this object. Whosoever will have it. What is name? User.20. Is it a setup command? Because it's not a function. Yeah, exactly. It's a setter command. You are right. We are just using a setter to set up a value of 20. Right? Okay. So you see here, I have defined a login function. Why not let's define a logout function as well? Logged in equal to false. So again, this means that whatever object is calling that, whatever is that. So now if I just take out this user is equal to 20, and if I do something like that, and not hobbies, I want to print all the function, all the object. So Control S, and now let's run that. So see here, this is my object. This is my object, first name, last name, age 20, hobbies, reading, writing. And now see, login and logout are showing some functions. So there are some functions which is not showing. And since we have not called them, so you see that logged in is right now false. So now what about if I come over here? If I come over here and I say user.login, and I call this function. If I do user.login and I print the value of user, you see, focus on this one. Right now it is false. And if I run that again, you see that logged in is equal to true. So again, a function, I have called a function which is inside that, within that object. And I can call this function, and this function is doing what? It is doing a wonderful job for me, that this function is changing the state of that one. And again, after that user.login, if I call user.logout, of course, you know what happens, that now it would use login and then again log out. So again, false, because logout will be setting it to the false. Is that right? So that's a wonderful thing, and we can just work on that one. So now let's talk about something which is very, very interesting, and you would be knowing about that. You would have heard about that, at least minimum you would have heard about that one, which is there is something called, I want to just create a very, so if I have to create multiple users like this, so remember, I want to take you somewhere. If I have to create multiple users like this, so let's call that some typical name as well. Alan Smith. Okay, what is saying? He's asking, can you use a function from one object in another one? Yes, we can use that, and we can use that, and we'll see that. I will do that. So you see that this one object is basically, now it has Alan Smith, and let's call it something. Yeah, so Alan, and so I have just created this one. Now think about this. If I have to create multiple users, hundreds of users, I'll have to always create this user with the name, with everything, and with all those things. So it means that I need to define something, or I need to play with something that gives me this facility, that there should be a common sense of function, which I just pass in a value, and then it becomes something. So in JavaScript, to do that, so again, remember why I'm saying, just remember the purpose. Just remember the purpose, that what I'm saying, that I want to have something that gives me a facility that I have. So if I have to create users, I'll have to keep on creating users. But can I have a function that can do all these things for me? The answer is yes. And what is that function? I'm about to tell you. That function is called constructor function in JavaScript. Now, I'm optimistic that you would have heard this constructor function in object-oriented programming at least by now. Have you heard this constructor function name in object-oriented programming, C++ or whatever? Wonderful. But remember, it's a bit. It would be a slight different over here, but I'll let you know why it's a bit different and how it is different from the previous one. Anyhow, just constructor function. And constructor function because or in relation with the class, because that there is something called a class and it has a constructor function which has the same name as the class name, and it is automatically called when the class is called. Remember, right? Have I given the right definition of constructor? Yes. So we can have something like that. So now I'm not defining that. So I'm talking about, first of all, the traditional way or the old way, Andres, the old way of how JavaScript handles functions, constructors. And then I come to the classes as well. I'm not talking about the class right now. In JavaScript, if you have to create a constructor function, that's very easy. You will use just same function keyword, but the one thing that you have to keep in mind is that the function name should start with a capital letter. Now, please keep in mind, because I'm talking about a traditional way of JavaScript. Constructor functions always start with a capital letter, which is not the basically sort of requirement for real object-oriented languages, But here we say that constructor function should always start with a capital letter. So I'll say function user. Try to understand that. And maybe I say first name. It will have first name and last name passed to it. I'm hopeful that you know that parameter, what is this parameter argument that has been passed to. Now, interestingly, when you are defining this as a constructor function, you will be using this keyword with all this. I have not intentionally discussed this in very much detail, but I hope you will understand that. This dot first name is equal to first name. Okay. This dot last name equal to last name. Now, this dot is logged in equal to false. This dot age equal to 20. For example, I'm just giving an example. This dot pref equal to preferences I'm talking about, right? So I took this color, for example, black, and then I take model and I select any. Right? So I am defining a constructor function over here, and you will see shortly that what is the benefit of that one. So after that, when you have defined that, you come over here and you say this dot score equal to 0 or whatever you want to set up. This dot login function will define function over here. Function, and again, I'm not using the arrow syntax over here. I'm just using the simple syntax, so it would be a mix of simple and all those things. This dot is logged in equal to true. If you call this function, you do that. This dot log out. This dot log out equal to function. This logged in equal to false. I hope everyone is with me. So I've just created a function, and I'm calling it as a constructor function. And why I'm calling this as a constructor function? Because I have started with a capital letter, user. And again, I'm not talked about address about the classes. Still, we don't know what are classes in JavaScript. We know that JavaScript has this traditional constructor function that can be used without an object, without a class or object. You know what I mean on this? Hopefully, everyone will be understanding that. Right now, I'm just telling you the classical way of JavaScript handling the objects, handling the constructor functions, and then I'll talk about the ES6 way or the advanced way of handling that. Okay, thank you very much, Andre. So now, this is a constructor function that I've defined. Now, the first thing that I want everyone to notice that I am just having these two values passed to this one, and those two values will come over here and they will be plugged in. So how many of you understand this dot first name is equal to first name means what? What is this dot first name is representing? Can anyone tell me, other than these one or two people who are replying continuously? Andres, I don't need answer from you. What does this dot first name refers to? And what does this first name refers to? So these two are the different things. So now, who can tell me what is this first name, which is coming first, and what is this last name, which is coming first with this, and what is the other one? Can anyone let me know? When we say this with something, what does that mean?
So whenever we pass some values to users, like for example, users path patel, so this will assign that values to first name.
Okay, that's good. Then I'm just asking. Okay, but you're right. But can you just tell me what does this dot first name means? Typically, what does it mean? Like, in a typical scenario, what does that mean? This dot first name.
Wait, but you mean in a typical scenario without the function constructor?
Exactly. So now, so Tariq is also, this dot first name is the object, member name, first name is the object. That's wonderful, Tariq. You're right. So this dot first name is the member of this object. So this constructor function will create this first name, last name is logged in, age, pref, color, etc., and it will set up all these values. Now, only two values I am passing. So let's see how we'll create. It is exactly the same as you are familiar for creating the object. Now it's very easy to create users. So if I say user one equal to new user, and now here I can pass two values. If I say Alex and I can say John, I've created an object. Like I have created one user, and how I have created, I just pass two values and all the code is being running and it is just providing me that one. So now if I console this user one, now if I console this user one, see what happens. Now an object is appearing, which is very interesting. Not first name, this one, which is very interesting. First name Alex, last name John, and you know that we have set up these two values over here. Those two which will be passed as parameters. So when I've said user one is equal to new user Alex and John, so this constructor function is called and it sets up Alex and John, and Alex goes to this first name, this dot first name, the first name of the object where we are calling the right now, the owner of this function right now, and last name is set up as the last name, this dot last name. Now rest of the values are set by default because I have given all those default values. Is that making sense to everyone? Okay, that's wonderful. Now if you see that I have created one user, now it's very easy for me to just create users. I say user2 equal to new user, and I say Bob Smith, something like that, right? And let's create maybe one more user. So now it's very easy to create user. Sorry, and I can just as you know that I can just create Christina. Something like that, right? So now I have three objects, and I have just created three objects out of this constructor function. I'll just cut that from here. I'll just show you. So now if I had hundreds of objects, I can just create all those objects by just passing them. And now I can just print every one of them. So if I use print console.user2 and user3, I can just print all these three objects. So you see here that I have got these three functions where Alex John, and then Bob Smith, and then Christina Harry, and then they are all defined as the typical one. And whatever value you want to change, you can change of anyone. So for example, after that, I say user1 dot. So for example, user1 dot, I want to change the score, user1 dot the score equal to 100, and user2 dot, for example, if I say last name. I want to change the last name of user 2, and I say it's not Smith, it's Anderson, something like that. Like that. So now if I print these, which I will change, user 1 and 2, if I just print this user 1 and 2 again, so you'll see that these values have been already changed, and now you can just run them. Yeah, so this is now running. I'll show you. Okay, so this user. So it's starting Alex and John, Bob Smith, false, and Christina Harry, false, and then first name Alex, John, and you see that. What did I change for the first one? For first user, I have changed user 1. Dot score. Okay, I've changed the score. So score is 100, and there should be score should be 100. Yeah, you see that Alex John's score has changed to 100 over here, and then I have changed for that one. So anyhow, we can just change all these values that you want to run, and you can change those values. Okay, so yes. So this is a good question, and I'll talk about that shortly. But before that, I want to talk about something very, very, very interesting, and that I will talk about after a quick 5 minutes break. But yes, I'll tell you that how I will be creating the array of objects. But let's take a quick break of 5 to 7 minutes, and I'll be back. It's 2:26 in my clock, so I'll be back at around 2:32 somewhere, right? So you also enjoy a cup of tea or something, and let's meet after 5 to 7. I'm not sharing my screen. All right. So we talked about this, and before going to break, I was just talking about some different things. So I'll just talk about some. So here, what we are doing is that we have created one constructor function, and a function that's capable of taking 2 parameters and just setting up some values with that one. And it's just taking 2 parameters from us and setting up those values. And you remember, if there is a function in JavaScript that is looking for certain values, certain number of values, and you don't provide those certain number of values, it will just take an undefined one. Right? So that's an interesting fact about those kind of things. Now I want to tell you something very interesting. This constructor function is used to create objects, and as we have seen that there are multiple objects that we are creating by passing up the first name and the last name, and we are just continuously creating multiple objects. I want you to just focus on something. Let me just, for example, delete this one or comment that out. Cut that everything from here, and I'll paste that on above, because since you need to have something as a reference. For example, I'll just, or maybe just take it more above. Not really, because that would mix together with something. I'll just leave it over there, just for the reference purpose. Okay, so observe something. If I'm creating a user over here, user 1, or user 2, or user 3, every time this login and logout function, they are also embedded with this user object. Does everyone agree with that? Every time when I create this user object, some new user with this user constructor function, these 2 methods, these 2 functions are typically always shipped in, with that object. Now, even if you use or don't use these 2 functions are necessarily the part of user 1. They are necessarily part of user 2. They are necessarily part of user 3, even if you are not using them. You know what I mean? Because when you just print out, as we have done that, if I just print out console.log user3, for example, any user randomly, if I just print that user only, so you will see that these two functions are always shipped in there. You will always find them at the bottom because login and logout, these are the two functions. Now, JavaScript in the classical sense of JavaScript, if I say classical sense, I mean that we are talking about the old style JavaScript before ES5, ES6 standardization. So old style JavaScript used to say that you need to just save your, for example, if you have 1,000 users, so you will have all those functions. And even if I don't use that, maybe if I never use this login function for any of the user, I might not use this logout function for any of the user. That might be for a long time I never use them. Now in JavaScript, as I said, there is a concept of a prototype. Prototype, or so to speak, I will just give the real meaning, prototypal inheritance. I talk about that. So JavaScript says, if you have a situation like this, where there are certain functions, there are certain things that you feel should not be a part of the object when it is created by the constructor or by class or something, whatever, we are not really concerned. So if that is not, if it is not something which is very much required, and if you need it, you just need it. If you don't need it, you don't need it. Like again, if you don't use it, it's uselessly basically just shipped in as a code, and we don't need that one. So what JavaScript says that rather than putting those prototype like those functions in your constructor, rather than putting those extra, I'm calling them extra functions in constructor, put them in prototype. Now this is not something new for you, and definitely you would enjoy that. Put them in prototype. So JavaScript is giving us first interesting thing. It says that if you don't have to, if this is something that you feel that you won't be using too many times, or maybe you might be using for an object or not using an object, so don't put them in the constructor function. Rather, put them in the prototype of the constructor. What does that mean? I'll just make it comment, and I'll copy and paste this function user, because I want to show you this is separately, and I want to keep this code as well. So I make it comment. I've copied that one, and I will make that one also a comment. And here I'll paste my code that I have copied. Right. So this is my user. So JavaScript says that rather than putting these functions over here, just take these functions out, both of them, and I'm just taking them out, and I'm just making them comment because I want to see them. Come out of the constructor function, right, and do something like this: user dot prototype dot login, the name of the function that you want to create. User dot prototype dot login equal to function, and by function I mean I just need to write that same function. So you say just this dot is logged in equal to true. So when login is called, you have to just do that one. All you do is user dot prototype dot logout equal to function and curly braces, and again this dot is logged in equal to false. Is everyone understanding that? I have deleted these two, and I will literally delete them from here now. So my constructor, these two functions are not inside my constructor function. Rather, these two functions are out of my constructor. They are in the prototype of my constructor. So I have said user.prototype. The prototype, actually, what is the prototype? And let me just write down here. What is a prototype typically? So if you just want to know, a prototype is like a template to create an object or create an object data type. Now is it like? It's like a template to create an object. So it will be acting as a template, and I'll show you the practical example of that. Now what happens when I create these objects now? Control C, and I'll bring them over here, and I will just make uncomment them. Now you see here, I'm creating these three functions. So now when I create this user one with Alex and John and Bob and Smith and Christina and Harry, now these does it make sense to everyone? I need some feedback because so long ago Pat says yes. But I'm saying, if you have thousands of users, that way you have multiple functions which are there, which you might or might not need. They never be shipped with your objects, rather than your.
Professor, your voice is breaking. We cannot hear you properly.
Am I back for everyone? Looks like I got disconnected because of my internet. Am I audible to everyone now? Looks like I was off for some time. Okay, Andy, you can hear me as well, by the way. You can see me and you can hear me as well, by the way. Okay, that's good. That's good. Thank you very much. Okay, I just got disconnected because of some reason. I don't know. Anyhow, what was the last thing that I said? Can anyone tell me? A little choppy though. Still, I'm choppy. That's not a good thing.
You were saying something about prototype?
Yeah. So your audio stopped when you showed the three objects. Okay. Okay. Right. Andy, let me know when it gets the most proper audio. I will be choppy when I'm everyone. Okay. There is something wrong with it. Let me switch my internet to other connection. Okay. I'm not getting any responses, very late responses from you. And can you hear me now? Andy, thank you very much. Okay. Okay, Tariq, thank you very much. Always please respond to me. Otherwise, I don't know that what's going on. It looks like I'm talking to the walls and nothing is coming from your side. Anyhow, so Mustafa, you say that yes, you can hear me now. So I showed you these three objects. I think I stopped there, and I'm hoping that I'm sharing my screen right now and everything is good. So when you create these three objects, Mustafa, are you making sense of it? That these two functions, as I said, that they have gone in the prototype, they are not anymore in the constructor function. So these two functions have gone in the prototype, and now they will not become automatically the part of every object when it is created. Make sense? Okay, Vinny, thank you very much. Okay, right. So now try to understand something. But you might be thinking that whether I will be able to access the function or not. So you will always be able to access that function. If I don't use them, so first of all, let's console this again. Console.log user1. and maybe just console the user 2 as well, or 3. So if I run that one, and if I show you, you see that I am getting these two objects, and these two objects do not have, if you see here, yeah, if you see here that these two objects that are coming, they do not have those functions inside them as a code, right? And that was the purpose that we had. So this is just starting from this point. If you see that my first object and my second object, and they do not have any function associated with it. But can I use those functions? Yes, I can use those functions. So if I come over here and I say user1 dot log in, because it is right now it is log out. If I say user1 dot login and I print this user1 again, let's see if that function is there or not, like it's working for me or not. That's a question mark still. Let's see. I'll show you. So see here, this is my first object, Alex John is logged in false. And now I'll have to check this one again. Alex John and is logged in is equal to true. But are you looking at this? Why? Because I have called this function. And you might be thinking that where this function has come from. So remember, if something is in the prototype, it is technically speaking as if it is inside that object. If you need that, it will go upstairs, like upstairs means the upside, and it will find in the prototype. We'll try to find that in the prototype. And now I'll show you something interesting, because I wanted to show you something very interesting. I have shown you that this REPL that we have in our web browser, the REPL that we have, that we have a REPL in console. I want to show you something. If I create an object, if I want to create an array, you remember I usually used to create array like this. My ARR equal to 1, 2, 3, whatever. I can create an array like this. But I can create an array like this as well. My ARR2 equal to new array. And let me just give 4, 5, 6, something like that. You see, my ARR2 is also an array for me. You see that there is an array. I want to show you something interesting. I have created this my ARR2. So I have just created this array with 3 values, and I've not given any function or something. But do you see when I drop it down, I'll show you something. Do you see this prototype over here? First, do you see that prototype? If I open this one, there are lots of functions that have been defined in the prototype of this array. Now, this is very interesting that I don't need to define these functions by myself. I don't need even to accommodate those functions into my array, but they will reside always in the prototype. Is everyone understanding what I'm saying? That right now the prototype, the 2 functions that we have passed in the prototype, we have just taken them out of our object. Like the object that we are creating the user, we have taken them out, and we have just put them in the prototype of our function of our class. So this prototype. So you see, when I say my ARR to dot. So when I say dot, you see that length, concat, all these things. I have not defined anything over here. But if you see where all these things are defined, you can always find them in the prototype. You see, at length is a property. Length will come over here as well. See, length is a property. Then there are certain functions. ToString, you can convert that to string function. There are some certain prototype of that one as well. So you understand what is a prototype? How many of you understand what is a prototype? So right now, just consider that what is a prototype. Prototype is something that automatically does not. So if I say that my array dot length, so I say that this length function I have not defined by myself. Rather, it has been given by the prototype of my array. And remember that when I was creating this array, you see that always A is capital. In the same way as we create strings, so if I say let name equal to new string, so I will always start with a capital letter, and I say ln, for example. So now this name is a new, and you see string S is capital. So remember, anything that is starting with capital is typically in JavaScript, it is considered as an array, as a constructor function. Make sense, everyone, of the constructor function? I hope you are understanding what I'm trying to say. That this is typically the constructor function. And now this thing, technically, this defining this one in the prototype, this technically is called prototypal inheritance in JavaScript. This is typically called as prototypal inheritance in JavaScript. And this is a very interesting concept. of JavaScript, because this concept gives you lots of interesting facts that we have got, that we can just do a wonderful things with this one, because we never want to have everything related or everything into our into our that one, into our object. Rather, we always want to have something that has that, for example, if I take out that function to some other part, that has to be. But remember, what is the prototype? When I call this login function for the user one, it first checks inside this user, and it does not find. It says that okay, login is not there, but it will go to its prototype and check, okay, does this user's prototype has this login function? Yes, it has. So it will just create that, and it will just run that. Right. So that is basically what that is. As I said, it's a prototypal inheritance. When you take out a function from the constructor body and you take it and you just run it in somewhere in a prototype, and then you can just call that. As I said, you can always call that, and that call will be that will just take that one. Right. So now we can just play with that one. We can have lots of things. If I ask you that, can I pass multiple values? Yes, you say that yes, you can pass multiple values over there, and you can just have multiple values. For example, if I say, if I want to pass this age as well, and I can just set up this age with this age, right? So now my function will accept 3 values rather than 2, and I can pass some age over here as well. So now it will be something like this, right? So now if I run my program, you will see that my age will be set up by now values. I can see that the first one is 20, the last one is 20. This one is 20 again. This is which one I have changed, by the way. I've changed for the prototype. Just want to see that. Yeah, so it's 20 for first one, 19 for the second one. Let me show you very simple, easily. 19, 20, and 20. So because we have just set up these two 20 years, let me just change it to 25, something like that. And now run this. So this is 20, the first one. This is 20, 19, and 20. That's good. Why is it not showing me that? First one is 20, that's good. Second Bob is 19. It is also fine. It's not giving for Christina, I think. Oh, Christina, I've just printed that, Christina. I'm sorry. So I've just printed this 1 and 2, and then login is called. So that's why it is just waiting. I've not called this visit free, right? So that's why the third age is not coming. So there's nothing wrong with that one. So it's just showing me the ages 20 and 20. If I run that again, now I'll see the difference. That this has 19 age and this has 20. So age, I can change the age. I can just do lots of good things about that one. I can even play with these functions now with these objects, and I can just print whatever value you want to print in, or you can just do lots of wonderful things with this object. Right. So are you understanding that one? So this is called prototypal inheritance, and I've not talked about the typical class keyword, the typical classes that are used in JavaScript these days. And I'll talk about that because I will be doing one project with you, a little project in our class that will show you the real importance of the class keywords and all those things. But before that, I just wanted to discuss these few things with you, and just wanted to show you that this is the prototype, and that we are using. So basically, this prototype is nothing new, as I showed you in my over here, that we have just done that a lot of time. And when you open up this prototype, you will find out There are so many functions which are basically the part of the prototype. You see, unshift is prototype, values is prototype, and there are lots of other functions prototypes that you can always use. So that's something that you can always keep an eye on. So I would like you to just practice few things, and just let me see from the notes if we are missing something, or we want to have something. Object that created, we have discussed object that create or something like that. But let's. So there's a merge code problem that you can just but you could design that. Okay, yes. So this WEEK4, like you have been given some nice examples that we have just covered few of them. That we have talked about this project prototypes. We have talked about this prototypal inheritance. You can just if you are curious enough, you can just go and find out what is this inheritance in prototypal inheritance. What is that? So you see that here they have shown you that properties of functions in the prototype. You can just add any property to the prototype, and that prototypal functionality will be there. So this is do something function which has some prototype. So we can just do that prototypal functions in that way. So we can just define that one. So basically, so you see that here with the constructor. The constructor function, you see that graph this dot vertices or something like that, and then there's so this is whole lots of example. I would like you to just go through all these examples that these notes are giving for WEEK4. So I would be expecting you to have a very nice look at this one. And the one example that I gave you, that this is an array of this is an object where there are 3 elements and all 3 are the arrays inside them. How to access them, how to work for them. They have just mentioned everything over here. And you can just work with that one, and there is how to deal with the objects, the optional parameters. That's these are all left for you. Like you can just always talk about them, and we will just talk about few interesting things in our coming next session, and then we will just so in the meantime, I would always encourage you to just go over here and try to come up with these examples which are set up over here, and try to come up with the mapping or something like that. You will be just doing. So this will be a very good practice, and this is a solution over there as well for that one. But you need to just try it out, that how you can just solve these problems by looking on all these all these examples. So yes, if someone has a question, let me see if I have just everything covered from WEEK3 as well. Just having a look at that one. If you have any question, you can just go ahead and ask. Otherwise, I was just expecting some practice questions from some people, but still I have received very few these practice questions. There are not too many people who have just sent me these practice questions. So any questions thus far from anyone? Yes, I'm waiting for any question. Winnie, okay, and you don't have any questions, right? Only Andy, you don't have any question, but rest of them will have questions, but they are not. Okay, Winnie, that's wonderful. You say that it's good till now, right? Okay, okay, Tariq, thank you. So now let's see you all in on Thursday. You will get of course. And yeah, by the way, you remember we have a test every week. We have a test every week, so we'll just talk about that. You might, I will just put that announcement as well. You might get a test 2 this week. And as I said in the beginning, I'm just saying it again for the recording purposes as well. If you are the one who is looking for some information or something, you might we'll be discussing the result of that test, and I'll be discussing that maybe in the coming week, the test 1, and then the test 2 will open up there. So whenever you have a test, the test will happen in your second session. It's for everyone. Like again, whatever group you are in, so your test will always happen on in the second session, right? So thank you very much, everyone, and enjoy your day. Let's, as I said, see you later.